I hope that you all are doing well. This time we have Stephen with us. He is a Vedic astrologer, and in this video he talked about some myths related to astrology, differences in Vedic astrology and other astrology in the world, influence of religion and faith on astrology, and his perspective on Vedic astrology being an American. So without any further delay, let's get into the video. Hello, Stephen.
Hello.
Welcome to my channel. And I'm sure that my audience are going to learn something new today by this podcast. But first things first, I would like you to introduce yourself to the wonderful audience.
My name's Stephen Kahn, and I'm from the United States, and I'm a practicing Vedic astrologer. And family friends brought us together and everything, so it's really nice to be here on your channel. And hello out there to everybody, and hope you're having a nice day out there despite any extenuating circumstances and everything. And I look forward to speaking with you now.
For how many years you've been practicing Vedic astrology?
I've been practicing for about 5 years now.
So you've been practicing for 5 years. And I'm sure that there must have been something very interesting story behind it. So I just want to know that what brings you close to astrology, and specifically Vedic astrology?
Sure. Well, I've always been interested in metaphysical sciences or mystical ideas and concepts. And so astrology, at first, to be honest, growing up in the United States, I actually received a Bachelor's of Science in Engineering from the University of Maryland, which is one of the states here. And so I was always a little skeptical of more of the metaphysical aspects of science because, we haven't put equations behind them yet in the mainstream terms and everything. So I was always a little skeptical of astrology. Then I had another friend that suggested that I get a Vedic astrology reading. And I've always been interested in the Vedic culture, or the Indian culture, Hindu culture, because I felt like it had more, I connected to it personally. I've gone to Shivite temples, and I've done kirtan and different things that I really connect with actually on a deep spiritual basis. And I really believe in the principles of Sanatana Dharma. And so for me, I felt like Vedic astrology might have a little bit more of a congruency to my personality or to what I believe in, to my beliefs. And so I got a Vedic reading, and my mind was blown away. And I was just, it was me, like on a piece of paper described by somebody. So that was a very powerful experience for me. And it definitely opened the gates of awareness to the point in which I was thinking, oh, maybe I got to jump down this rabbit hole and really study this, because I was looking at my chart and I couldn't make sense of it myself. And I really wanted to know what it meant and what all the different subtle things were, because I think there's a lot that gets said by astrologers that's predictive and that gets a little extrapolated a little too far sometimes. And so I was like, well, I'm skeptical about this aspect of the reading that I had, but I really agree with this one. So I decided I had to study it for myself, and I went to I studied with a teacher named Sam Jeppy, who runs the American Academy of Vedic Arts and Sciences. And so it's kind of a Western perspective on Indian astrology, basically. And I really got into it. And so I've really been enjoying practicing it and sharing it with other people, and, kind of helping people learn more about themselves and their skills and their dharma and their artha and their kama and their moksha, all the different aspects that we discuss.
So that was actually your friend who suggested you for the Indian astrology, for the astrology.
Yeah, one of my really good friends, Michelle May. Yeah.
Okay, so Stephen, many scientists claim that there is no proposed mechanism of actions by which we can predict the motions happening on the Earth. So what do you have to say about this claim?
I can understand where it's coming from, because we don't have the empirical evidence that, something manipulating physical objects would provide. Like Newton's equations are very easily affirmable. And so once we get into the psychological realm, it gets a little more touchy, it gets a little more interpretive. And so when, just like psychology is a science, in my opinion, I think some scientists would say that psychology is not a science in a way, because it's all about our and our thoughts and our feelings, and how can we actually measure those and put those on paper.
Mm-hmm.
I know there's been, there's a lot of scientists with different opinions on this, but personally, I really think that there's certain core principles and laws of nature, and one is the law of correspondence, which we hear colloquially in the United States, at least, as the rule of as above, so below.
Mm-hmm.
So, in terms of our structures amongst humanity, we kind of mimic the higher level on the lower level, and vice versa. So a family structure is, at any given time, the average family is kind of similar to the structure of maybe their government or their region. There's just different principles, and there's different kind of rules that get applied on a more subtle level to the universe. And I guess we could zoom out all the way to the cosmos and look at the solar system as kind of a mini version of the galaxy. And so, and the atom is a mini version of the solar system, of the galaxy. So all of these levels are interacting with each other, whether we can see them and measure them or not. Just a very complex science that takes the human intellect and the human brain to be able to process it. So, but I do think that there's a lot of these, basically these, if you look at it, these objects, these planets, are gigantic objects, and they're so close to the US, so close to the world, compared to, and the solar system is so filled with all these gigantic objects that are so close to our planet compared to the nearest star. It's degrees and degrees closer. It's not even a comparison to see how all of these things are basically touching us compared to even the nearest solar system. So once you get into the further reaches of the cosmos and the universe, it's easy to see that, when the people that are closest to us are acting a certain way, then we tend to, change our behavior based on theirs. Mm-hmm. So maybe they reflect upon us, or maybe they bring out a different side of us, just like the planets do for us, because they're so close to us. Whereas, we're so far away from certain objects, certain planets, certain galaxies out there, that we don't necessarily feel those influences quite as strongly as the ones that are right here. And I do think I really relate to my chart, and I can see other people relate to how their chart has been read, or I try to stick to very fundamental concepts so that people can really just stay within the pureness of the science, I think, in terms of the truthfulness and the dharmic aspects of it.
Mm-hmm. So, Stephen, by many astrologers, it is claimed that whatever is written in your future will happen to you. So, is that true, or is there any way by which we can change our future being in the present?
Sure. Yeah. In my opinion, I'm not one to really make, I don't think astrology can be perfectly accurate, especially when it comes to predictions. There's so many, like I said, there's so many complexities to the science and subtle nuances that when we try to predict the future, there's, first of all, in my opinion, the planets, the energies are more of like a psychological influence. And I know that they affect everyone's psyche around the entire world. And yes, they affect the earth herself, the earth itself, as a way, and perhaps that's how certain events can happen. But to say that an event is going to happen is really just playing with probabilities and saying that, something that's probable is definite. And it's not even probable necessarily, because a lot of these interpretations are really interpolating something that's very vast, this very vast energy that we all feel very subtly. And they're kind of taking it into what they interpret to be what's going to happen. someone feels like they have to do the right thing today. They're like, I got to act on my principles. I got to act with honor. I have to, and for some people, that's going to be telling their parents that they love them and saying, maybe writing a letter to someone that, did something right and appreciating what they did, or going and to someone else that's going to work, that's just doing your job. So how would, in my opinion, I don't think very many astrologers can determine the difference between, and maybe, one is going to be about speaking because it involves Mercury, and one is going to be about other people because it involves Venus, or but I don't think that we can get into the specifics of what words are going to come out of people's mouths, what actions people are going to do. I think we do have control over our karma and over our actions to a certain degree. I think there are certain things that are fixed, and that, as we know, our actions from the past have consequences that we're experiencing now. But they have a way, we can still control the way that we react to them. We can still control the way that they come out in us. And sometimes things happen in our lives, but it's not going to be the same thing every time. And it's not going to be easily predictable, in my opinion.
Stephen, what role do you think does belief system and faith does have to play with astrology? Not just Vedic astrology, but every astrology.
Sure. I think that it definitely involves a leap of faith in certain regards, just because when we don't have a full physical, tactile understanding with something, there's always a little bit of faith when we're learning about something, at least, to kind of believe in it before, and then to see it in motion and to see if it happens. So like I started studying astrology when I was still skeptical, and I had to take a lot of, jumps, and I had to take a lot of, and I'm still to this day questioning certain techniques personally. And that's why I like to keep it to the very fundamental aspects and keep it very simple, because I think that we can just expound upon idea and get into the whole super complex realm of just all the different aspects and techniques in astrology, of which there are almost infinite. It's a lifelong study. And for me, just at this point in my career, or at this point in my life, or my study of astrology, I haven't been able to see, I guess, enough evidence to prove certain techniques are viable. But I know that I've seen enough evidence to allow me to believe or have faith in the principles of astrology, and it's pretty easy for me to see that, okay, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to see that the sun is there and the stars behind it are Aries, and therefore, it's not hard to conceptualize that Aries energy is coming through the sun like a lens, and coming into our consciousness somehow, or into our lives, or the collective. So there is a little bit of a leap of faith for sure. And I think that some people, it's very interesting, because when you talk about spiritual sciences or psychological sciences, you definitely have to be willing to look at things that aren't necessarily like concrete evidence or that are proven, and you have to be I guess observant enough to see the subtle nuances in different people's perspectives, and to see, to look for the truth, to always be looking for it, and always being skeptical and rational, but at the same time open-minded, because, as people, we only learn when we're open-minded enough to allow new concepts to come into our consciousness. But at the same time, we can't just subscribe to those blindly without seeing any evidence. So whether or not the evidence is empirical or anecdotal is a different story, and that'll allow someone to feel more like there's more truth to it, or that they believe in it more, or that they see it and they think it's real or not. I think there's a lot. There's a big range of people, and a lot of people that are interested in more of the spiritual sciences can get a little too into everything, because they just open up and they're all about belief and being open without enough skepticism. So I think it's very important that if you're the type of person that really believes in something, you need to have a grain of salt, take everything with a grain of salt and be intentional about doubting things more than you would like to. And if you doubt things too much, you need to open your mind up a little bit. It's that balance. And we talk about that kind of in the Western and Eastern perspectives in general, is that Western people are so logical and so based in tangible reality, very Kali Yuga-esque. And whereas maybe in India, people are a little bit more geared towards spirituality and their belief systems, and they would be wise to focus a little bit more on the practicality and where they can prove their different systems. And the people in the US would be a little bit wiser if we were to open our minds up a little bit more to deeper perceptions while remaining skeptical.
So you are saying that you just need to open your mind. The COVID-19 situation has taken all over the world, and many people are predicting about it. So I just want to know that what will be India's position after the end of this pandemic?
So, in terms of one country or another, I can't really say, but I know that just from looking at the astrology of it all and looking at, where planets are in the sky with regards to where signs are, I think we can see that Jupiter and Saturn and Pluto even, I know we don't study Pluto in Vedic astrology, but they're all in Capricorn right now. And now they're retrograde. So they're in this part of their cycle where they are in apparent backwards motion. And so that shows kind of once they were going into Capricorn was really when this was all kind of coming about, when the coronavirus was happening. But I look at it more in line that it was more about the boundaries and the restrictions, and those are really the Capricorn principles about being real, protecting yourself through boundaries, being very pragmatic and serious in your actions. And I think that we can see that those things have happened regardless or not of coronavirus, as maybe the straw that broke the camel's back, or the issue that's kind of just the most prevalent right now, but the impacts of that are more boundaries. The impacts of that are social distancing. We even have terms about it now, and people have incorporated that into their belief system in a certain regard. That's what Jupiter relates to, our beliefs and kind of our wisdom. So we've kind of said, oh, we need to be boundaries. We have boundaries. We need to be in our homes, protected, safe, secure, all these very Saturnian Capricorn concepts. It's a period of reflection. And then once it goes prograde again, we'll get more into maybe a new form of having boundaries, a new style of, what worked during this period, what didn't work. And hopefully we'll do things that make more sense, that allow people to still have freedom, but be safe. And that's like my big concern, is that people are still free and have rights and liberties. And because, in the effort to stay safe, oftentimes we forfeit our rights and our freedoms, and we definitely want to make sure that we retain them over time, because that's
good.
So that's my perspective.
So what would be your message to the people, whoever really wants to pursue astrology, and to my audience at large?
Sure. I think if astrology calls to you, just like if anything calls to you in life, it's a message to pursue it, to at least dig down and study it. I'm an avid learner, an avid studier. I've got a lot of Gemini energy in me. So I like to absorb new information. And if it's calling to you, definitely learn about it and open your perspective, look at different types of astrology, don't just stick with one maybe, or compare it to another, at least, like I was talking about with Western and Vedic. Also, I think if it really calls to you, it calls to you. I was just drawn in, and it felt like it was just my dharma that was being awakened. So that's how I got into it. But, other people do it because they want to know what feelings they're going to have in the future, what things happened in the past, and how to find meaning in their life or describe things. So I think if you're interested in studying something, everyone should have a basic working knowledge of the fundamentals of astrology, in my opinion. But, I think it's going to be a matter of time before society gets there and gets back to there, and, maybe another yuga or so. But to your audience in general, I feel like it's coming back to balancing that skepticism with belief and open-mindedness, and that it's so important to have both. And it's so important to go into any endeavor, any new field of study with both in equal parts, and to know which you are more leaning towards in your own perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're more of this science person that just doesn't want to believe anything that you can't put on a piece of paper in writing, then open your mind up a little bit more. And if you're one of these people that subscribes to every new philosophy that comes through that someone tells you about, then be a little more skeptical and do a little more research as to what actually makes sense to you. So I think that balance of skepticism and belief is very important, and kind of one of the essential principles in being a good researcher and a good astrologer and a human being on this planet. So
thank you so much. Thanks for being here.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
Thank you so much. If you're new to my channel, subscribe to my channel and don't forget to press the bell icon so that you can get the latest updates. Comment down below what's your reaction on this video. Like this video and share this video as much as possible.